Hi, I'm Canary 3D, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use my product, Canary's Colors for Strand hair. For my example hair, I've got Bodacious Bob hair by Chevy Babe 25. And you can see I've selected the hair itself, not the base, and I've gone to the Surfaces tab and selected the four surfaces of the hair. Most strand hair is parented to a mesh base that is parented to the figure. So just be sure you've actually selected the hair before you get started. So there are 4 folders with different types of complete color looks. And then there's a whole bunch of folders that are a construction kit. So I'm going to show you the complete looks first. So the first set are melanin-based colors. I've got 18 different hues plus a desaturated, a white to black. So for these 18 hues, each of them comes in a range of melanin strengths from light to dark. Melanin is what gives human hair its color. So it's for natural color hair, you want to use melanin. Less melanin means lighter hair. More melanin means darker hair. Some of these, I'm just going to grab, say, this one here. If you start with this is hue 234. These are all real hue numbers you can type into Photoshop to match colors. For this one, I've got the same hue, but in different strengths, different darkness, lightness, and then how much melanin is in the preset is determined by this melanin setting. So this is the lightest in hue 234, and then as you add more melanin, it will get darker. It won't add more of the hue, it will add more of the melanin color. So these are for where you want to have like an overtone effect, like the overtone color conditioners that you can use on dark hair. This will blend the natural human hair color with the dye color. The next folder has the same hues. They still go from light to dark, but these have no melanin in them, so they're a much more unnatural dye-based color. But for each of them, they go from A to F in terms of how dark they are. I've got this lit right now pretty strongly from the front, just so you can see the colors well. These shaders look best when you light them a little bit from the side or from the back. The next group is what I call signature mixes. This is where I've mixed up a lot of different ways of doing things to get a range of colors that I personally like to include in my products. These are still part of the merchant resource. There's no restriction in terms of which of the presets you can turn into material settings for your product. You just can't include the shader presets directly. You have to save them as material or hierarchical material presets. This has a range of blondes. It has some blacks with different highlights. It's got a range of brown hair. These typically have a mix of melanin and color and dye, and they have some weight to the dye to give it a streaked effect. I'll show you more about how that works when we get to that folder. The last of the complete looks folder are texture-based looks. By using a texture in these color channels instead of using just a straight color, you get a more varied look to the hair. Now I'm going to let this render for a sec. You can see this gives you these small strand groupings of blues and purples. So for this folder, there's style and utility settings. This controls the gain and the bias of the root and the tip. In the Omni shader, they are called color ratio and blend distance. So this says distance with gain in parentheses. This says ratio with bias in parentheses. So if you're used to the old terms, you're good. So the bias determines where on the hair the division happens. So this goes from the lowest all the way down at the tips to the highest up by the root. A couple of middle values. The gain determines how much blending happens between the root and the tip. So the lowest is a very strong division. The highest is almost no division. It's, a mix. And then there's a couple of middle levels as well. There's two types of roughness in this shader, and they seem to go in opposite directions. So to get the highest shine, you would apply the highest of this one and the lowest of this one. The shine is going to behave differently depending on the color you're using and the lighting you're using. I'm going to go put a very dark hair on here, which will make it a little easier to see. And then I'm going to change the light a little bit to get more of an angle so you can see the shine better. One disadvantage of turning the roughness or the making it extremely shiny is it takes a long time to render. One of the features of this shader is that it has a setting for the index of refraction of the hair. When you have a lot of melanin in the hair, you want to set it to about 1.5. So this sets it very low. There's no shine across the surface of the hair. It's only you can see the edges with the backlighting. If you set it to that 1.5, you get a much glossier hair. And this is something that can go higher than this, but this is the recommended range. So when you're using melanin in the hair, it's recommended to use this higher IOR. When you're not using melanin, when you're using a non-melanin look, it'll look better with a lower IOR. These next settings control the line width of the hair. You can make it much thicker. And you can make it much finer. This last one, line width invisible, is because you can't use the old school method of cutout opacity to hide it from a render. So if you want to turn off part of the hair, you can just set it the line width to 0, and that will make the hair then invisible. So if you have something where you don't want the bangs to show or the ponytail or something like that, you can just use that setting to do it. These last set of presets are for when you're using an older hair that where the line tessellation is not set to 0. This is on the parameters. Some older hair was before curves mode was introduced, and it's a lot heavier when you're moving it around in your scene and that kind of thing. So you get a nicer result when you use curves mode. Older hair, in order to update it, all you have to do is just switch it to tessellation 0 and then apply a newer shader that includes this UV direction setting. All of these presets, the Omni shader includes that setting. So if you're using an older hair, just go ahead and make sure you set the tessellation to 0. The easy way to tell is if you look in texture view, this will set it to 2, and you can see it looks more like rendered hair, OpenGL render, but you can see the individual parts of the hair. Whereas if you set it to tessellation 0, it's all just one sort of solid mass in the viewport. That's why I've included both of these, because it's always best to have it as tessellation 0 hair, curves mode hair when you're ready to render it, or if you're working with a heavy scene. But sometimes you just kind of want to see how it lays out. And so being able to quickly switch to tessellation 2 in your viewport can be useful. If you're actually rendering hair with this tessellation and you're using the Omni shader, you do need to change its UV direction. That's what these presets are for. I do not advise doing this unless you're really, really comfortable working with strand hair. One of the things is a lot of strand hair ships with the about half of the hair turned off in the viewport preview. So this allows you to turn that on and off. Here I'm turning PR preview off. If the hair looks like this, it means it's got that PR hair preview turned off in the viewport. It'll still render just fine. It's only in the viewport that the preview isn't showing, but this will let you turn it back on so you can see all of it. Now I'm going to show you the weights and amounts folder, which controls how the layers interact with each other. And it controls how much melanin you have and how it interacts with the weight map. So here I've got a green underlayer on the color layer, and I've got a violet dye layer. I've got no melanin here, and right now the dye layer is turned all the way up. So this can be controlled with this set of presets here. I've rendered these with a blue underlayer and a pink overlayer, so you can tell whether it's the dye layer or not based on that. So if we turn the dye layer all the way off, we can see the green underlayer. The green underlayer right now is set to a strength of 0.3, which works for a fairly strong color. You can go the other direction and make it much weaker by setting it to 0.8. I don't recommend putting it to a full 1 or a full 0 because it interacts strangely with some of the others. As you can see, the numbers are backwards of what we would typically think of because mathematically it's not doing exactly the same thing as the dye layer, which is a straightforward, strong 1 is strongest, 0 is weakest. So I'm putting this color back to 0.3, and then I'm going to set the dye layer to 0.5, and I get this violet with a little bit of green underlayer. If I set it all the way up to 1, again, it drowns it out. But we also have these weight maps. You see here this hair dye weight is at 1, but you can put a weight map in where the white areas show the dye and the black areas don't. And this is what that looks like. Now underneath that, I'm going to go ahead and turn some melanin on. And now you can see the effect of that weight map much more clearly, that you get these purple streaks coming through from the weight map. So there's just different varieties of that here, so you can have stronger mixes, weaker mixes, depending on what kind of look you like. If we turn the dye all the way off, so that we are mainly just dealing with the melanin, there are also maps to control streaks in the melanin. And that's similar to the hair dye map. It's just much paler so that the majority of it is white, and it only goes to gray, not to black, because if you try to put a black map in here, it will just completely wash the hair out. Next, in the construction kit, we have partial presets for the roots and tips of the color layer and the dye layer. These are pretty self-explanatory. It's the same 19 hues. For each one, there are 3 bright options and 3 muted options. The muted ones just aren't as saturated as the bright ones. These go from pale to strongest color, and then from lightest to darkest color in the muted ones. And then they also have a map option. Now you notice this doesn't look like it's doing much because all the weights and everything are still set from how they were before. If you hop up to the top, I've got a starter setting here to use with these roots and tips. So you can just choose your color layer, root and tip, and then you can hop to your dye layer, root and tip. You can see the dye layer icons are facing in the other direction. And I'm going to put a real pop of color here. Now you see when I loaded this, it didn't clear out that map. Up at the top here, there's a remove map, and there's a remove color option. And each of these folders has those remove options in them, so you can kind of clear things out as you go, but you also can stack them. I didn't want to take away the option to use a map and a color together, because you might want to do that. So here you can, include the color and the map to give yourself a little more variety. And this starts with a hair dye weight and a hair dye weight map that you might want to clear out of there. So again, that's in your weights and amounts. You can just remove that map if you want to, and then you've got a 50% weight. The last thing is I have some mixes for the dye layer. The last hair color thing in the construction kit. I've got mixes where the hue for the tip and the root are very far apart on the color wheel. Then I've got a set of near mixes where they're very close together on the color wheel, but they're not the same hue. And then I have a set of mixes where it's the same hue, but just dark and light. So the next thing I want to show you in the construction kit is the head cap color. So here I've got hue 234 applied to the hair. It's a light blue. And if you hide the hair, you can see that the hair base still has its original color from the product. And that's a reddish brown. So that's going to show through and it's not going to look right. So if you go here to Headcap Uber colors, these are iRay Uber shader colors that just change the base and transmission color channels. And so she's wearing, what did I say, 234. You have 3 versions of this. Sometimes you'll want to find the opacity and turn it down a little bit. Just to make it blend a little better with the head, particularly if it's a light color. Now we have a better match with the head cap and the hair. The last piece are presets for the viewport colors. When you're working in this mode in the viewport, it all will show whatever color is in the viewport color, regardless of what you've applied to the strands. So here you can find the relevant color, this is 234, and just match it up so that when you're looking at it in the viewport, you can tell what you've applied to it. That's the whole set. I hope you have fun with it, and thanks for watching.